Hello and welcome to episode 39 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Susie. I am your host today, and I am an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. Before I get into today's topic, a few of you have reached out to me in respect of having one-on-one sessions. My calendar is currently available for the combination session, which is an Akashic Records reading and clearing combined. At the moment, the calendar is not open for booking a single Akashic Records reading. That is going to change. I am going to open the calendar back up. I am just waiting for my teaching schedule for 2025 to be finalized. So if you are interested in just a single Akashic Records reading or a single Akashic Records clearing, then you can register your interest for that for 2025 over on my website. I'll put the link into the show notes. Those sessions are going to be February 2025 onwards. I am fully booked on all types of one-on-one sessions up to February 2025. So please do make sure that you get registered for that list, and then I will email that list when the single sessions are available again. It shouldn't be too much longer. I am just tweaking a few things in respect of what I'm going to be teaching next year. There's a few new things that are going to be coming to you next year. So I just want to make sure that I've got all of that into consideration for my calendar to then be able to open it up for one-on-one sessions. I do appreciate everybody's patience. I appreciate everybody's interest, and I promise I will have that calendar open as soon as I possibly can. Another reminder, I do have a free Akashic Records workshop coming up in December. Again, I will put the link to sign up for that one in the show notes. If you can't attend live, I know I have lots of listeners all over the world and time zones don't always work. Please don't worry. If you're registered, you'll receive a copy of the workshop to watch in your own time. So as long as you're registered, you're going to get to see that workshop. Of course, if you can attend live, I do love for you all to come live to meet me over on Zoom. I love to receive all of your questions and have a chat with you about everything to do with the Akashic Records. So please do get registered for that if you are interested. Now that all of that is out of the way, today I want to talk about the importance of presence in the age of distraction. The reason I want to talk about this today is in the Northern Hemisphere where I live, we are coming into the autumn winter season, very much into the autumn season if you're as far north as I am. And when we go into this energy, all we need to do is look around us. Everything is shutting down, everything is going within. It's the season of hibernation, it's the season of rest and retreat. And the society that we all live in very much consciously chooses to ignore this fact, to ignore that we are part of nature, that we also feel this desire to go inwards and to retreat and to rest during the autumn and winter season. It is completely normal for you to feel at this time exhausted, overwhelmed, just wanting to have time by yourself, time to rest and time to relax. What this has to do with the importance of presence in the age of distractions is I want to remind everybody about how confusing, chaotic, and dysfunctional our current world can feel, and how taking the time to spend time in neutral, consciously choosing presence over distraction is a rebellion against the norm. Those of you who are regular listeners will know that I am a big advocate of spending time in what's called the neutral state, the neutral energy. And the reason for this is because this is really where the magic happens. Okay, you can spend as much time as you want listening to podcasts, reading spiritual books, learning all the different paths and practices and systems and beliefs out there. But if you don't spend time in neutral, in actual practice, then you are not going to evolve. There is absolutely nothing wrong with continuing on your spiritual education. And I am a big fan of all of that. I love to learn about different concepts, different paths, different practices, different traditions over the world. It fascinates me and I love to do it. So please do not think that I am saying that there is anything wrong with that. But what I see a lot is that people who are only doing that and they're not taking away any of that information and actually putting it into practice. So think about when you have learned a new skill, whether it's been learning to drive a car or learning to play a musical instrument. You can watch YouTube videos on this, you can read books on it, you can listen to podcasts on it, I'm sure. But until you actually get behind the wheel or until you actually pick up that instrument, you are never going to get past that point of complete beginner. Please take this in the energy and intention that it is meant, is that there is nothing wrong with collecting all of this information and educating yourself, which I absolutely get behind. But we need to be conscious and we need to be self-aware enough to say, okay, I'm getting all of this stuff, but am I actually implementing it? Am I actually putting it all into practice? This energy that we are currently in with the autumn and the winter season is very much connected to our internal divine feminine energy. It's very much connected to that going inwards, that doing the work, self-reflection, shadow work like we've talked about. So it's very supportive of you spending time in neutral and you spending time actually resting. Rest itself is a spiritual practice and it is a discipline. In this day and age, for you to actually rest is to disconnect from everything else that is going on, everything that is vying for your attention, your time, and choosing to take time out. This goes against the norm and it absolutely goes against what the devolutionary stream and people who are influenced by the devolutionary stream of consciousness want you to do. The devolutionary stream of consciousness wants you to be in a state of fear, in a contracted state of energy. It wants you to be constantly distracted by the external so that you aren't focusing your time and attention on the internal. Now, we always have free will, and our free will helps us to decide, am I going to connect to the evolutionary stream and evolve and do the inner work, do the healing, transmute those lower vibrational energies that I'm holding on to? Or am I going to use my free will to focus my energy and attention on the external? Am I going to allow myself to be distracted? Am I going to get into the energies of division and fear and separation and anger at what is going on in the world? Earth is a school and it is a hard school. And there is nothing wrong with caring about what is going on in the world. But we have to remember that the only thing that we have control over is ourselves, our own inner development and our own soul's evolution. I was listening to a podcast by Cal Newport, I believe, the other day. Cal Newport does some great work in respect of what he calls slow productivity. And for those of you who are running your own businesses or looking to run your own businesses, I would definitely recommend reading Cal's book, Slow Productivity. In this podcast episode, he referred to the fact that we now receive more inputs into our sensory apparatus in a day than our ancestors, even 100 years ago, would have received in their entire lifetime. And this really got me into reflecting upon my own life, my own childhood. I am old enough to remember life before the internet, and my remembering of how important it was when I was a child to be bored. One of the things that I have done as a parent over my years of parenting is try to ensure that my children always had times where they were bored. Because what I came to know about myself is that when I made space, when I was not focused on reading another book or watching a TV show at the time or doing something like that, when that space was created, this is when my creative energy would come through. This is when I would learn new skills. This is when I would really want to deep dive into certain things. One of the downsides of having the internet and constant access to all of this information is that we don't really have time to be bored anymore. We have to consciously choose that. Any time that we are feeling now a little bit bored, what we will do is we will scroll on social media, we will put the TV on and stream something. Please don't think for 1 second that I am some Luddite who doesn't go on social media, who doesn't watch TV. I absolutely do. And I'm very much in favor of all things in balance. But I do also think that, especially for the generations who maybe haven't lived without the internet, the world that they're coming into can be very overwhelming. It can feel bombarding. And what we need to do as spiritual people and practitioners and teachers in this world is remind people about the benefits of things like practices of presence, taking time and neutral energy, and what can be born from these practices. As with anything, there are many aspects to this, and I'm not going to go into the science behind dopamine or anything like that because it's not my area of expertise, and there are people doing amazing work out there on this. What I do want to look at is I do want to look at the spiritual side of this and how to help you all incorporate some more presence in this age of distraction that we are currently living in. If we take as a basic premise that we understand that our spiritual development is inner work, we also understand that we have everything we need within us for our spiritual development, for our spiritual evolution in this time period. These are our basic premise. The question we then have to ask ourselves is, why am I then constantly going outside of myself and looking to the external rather than turning that focus and that attention inwards? Am I constantly going to the external to consciously seek information, practices, teachers that can help me with what it is that I'm working on internally? Or am I going outside of myself because I don't believe that I have everything within me? I believe that there's a book or a teacher or something outside of me that is going to do the work for me. We really need to get clear on our understanding of why we are allowing ourselves to be constantly distracted, why we are allowing our attention and our energy to be taken into this external focus rather than turning it internally. One of the things that the Akashic Records brings up all the time, whether it's my own personal practice or with students or with one-on-one sessions, is this idea of radical self-responsibility and getting really honest with yourself about why you are allowing yourself to be distracted all of the time is the first step forward. 9 times out of 10, we are allowing ourselves to be distracted because what is coming up when we slow down, when we take time to stop and pause and reflect, is uncomfortable. But this is where the spiritual work and the spiritual development really begins when you start to pay attention to all of that stuff that is coming up for you and focusing your energy and attention on dealing with that rather than distracting yourself, numbing out, or just trying to avoid those uncomfortable feelings that are coming up. Ways that you can help yourself really start to create an energy of presence and reflection in the age of distraction. Number one is slow everything right down. Okay, we are in a fast paced environment. Everything is available to us instantaneously. We are expected to be productive for our waking life with our jobs and our families. We have crazily busy schedules for our children. As a society as a whole, humanity has gotten very fast. So taking time to slow everything right down, making space in your schedule for times where you're doing nothing. This can, of course, be quite difficult when you have these additional responsibilities, and this doesn't have to be anything drastic. This doesn't have to be for an entire weekend. I am going to do nothing. I am going to not go on the internet. I'm not going to take my children anywhere. I'm just going to sit and I'm just going to be. A lot of you are in what would be in traditional terms called householder position at this moment in time. And that is where you do have other responsibilities. And your spiritual development is not supposed to be, I'm going to ignore all of those responsibilities and just focus on my spiritual development. They're supposed to go hand in hand. This is the role of a householder. Lots of you who will have had previous lifetimes where you have been able to leave the householder role behind or not even enter into the householder role and just go into spiritual service will find the balancing and the navigation of the role of householder to your spiritual development quite difficult, and that's okay. But just by slowing everything down, you can start to make that space for all of the stuff to come up. Equally, spending time in neutral energy. And as you will have heard me say before, this can literally be for 10 minutes while you're drinking your morning coffee, just sitting and being in your own energy and paying attention to what is coming up. Paying attention to the thoughts that are arising, paying attention to the emotions that are coming up, and observing those. So rather than being pulled into the energy of, I am angry, if anger is coming up, putting yourself into the perspective of, I am experiencing anger. Become more conscious of your consumption. And when I refer to consumption here, I'm not just talking about the food and the liquids that you intake. They are, of course, important, and everybody is unique in respect of what is needed for them. But what I'm talking about here is consumption from an energetic perspective and what you're taking in. As I said earlier, this is not never watch a movie again, never listen to a podcast, never read a book. I am not about that. But what I am about is pay attention to what you're consuming and how it makes you feel afterwards. If it makes you feel empowered, expansive, and really connecting you to that frequency of love and unconditional love, then that's absolutely great. If, on the other hand, you're consuming stuff which makes you feel contracted, it makes you feel fearful, it makes you feel any of those lower vibrational emotions, be aware of that. Becoming more conscious about your consumption is really going to help you strengthen your internal navigation system. And it's that internal navigation system which is going to help you discern what resonates and what doesn't resonate. Remember that at our time of evolution, we are still under the influence of evolutionary and devolutionary energies. And when we are taking in people's content. Even within the spiritual community, there are people who are connecting to the evolutionary energies and there are people who are connecting to the devolutionary energies. This is part of the learning and the evolution of people within the spiritual community. It's completely normal. But when you're consuming that information and that content, you're training your internal navigation system to be able to pick up what is evolutionary and what is devolutionary. The evolutionary energies are going to promote interconnectedness, oneness, empowerment, and sovereignty, whereas the devolutionary energies are going to try to promote dependency, fear, separation, and division. So if you are consuming somebody's content and it feels off, it doesn't resonate with you, it's completely okay. If you're listening to this podcast and it doesn't resonate with you, that's completely okay. Focus on what your internal navigation system is saying is right for you and which is helping you to be empowered and, most importantly, sovereign. If you are someone who is a practitioner, creating spiritual content, sharing with others, what you can do when you are spending time in this neutral energy, creating this energy of presence, is focus on what you can consciously create. So what can you put out there into the world that is going to help others and be of service to the collective? This energy of neutral and presence and just being, be here now, as Ram Dass would say, is very conducive to receiving inspiration and intuition from the higher dimensions and the higher beings within those dimensions, which can then be brought through you and given to the collective as a whole to help when they are looking out into the world and they're seeing the chaos and confusion and they're finding it really difficult. You can create things that are going to be helpful to guide people back to themselves and back to their own evolutionary path. I hope that you have found this episode helpful and that you now understand how important it is to create this presence and practice presence and being and resting in the age of distraction. The energies of autumn and winter are going to be really supportive of this work. So take some time out, take some time to rest, consciously consume some really good quality information that makes you feel empowered and uplifted, and allow yourself to create space for that higher guidance, that inspiration and intuition to drop in. As always, have a restful weekend, spend time with those that you love, and I look forward to seeing you all next week for the next episode.